Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. I've got the other kirtan going. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopichana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jashodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravanachari Jamuna Tiravanachari Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Privrajacharya Stotara Satta Sri Srimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Namacharya Haridas Thakur ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the lotus feet of Shri Guru and Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Deving Saraswating Vyasang Tato Jayam Mudirayet Naṣṭa-prayeshu bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Nayashtaki. So today we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 74, entitled The Deliverance of Śiśupāla, texts number 38 through 43, I believe. Correct. So we'll chant the first verse together. Evam-ādīny abhadrāṇi. Evam-ādīny abhadrāṇi. Babhāṣe naṣṭa-maṅgalaḥ. Novāca kiñcid bhagavān. Yathā siṁhaḥ śivā-rutam. Evam-ādīny abhadrāṇi. Babhāṣe naṣṭa-maṅgalaḥ. Novāca kiñcid bhagavān. Yathā siṁhaḥ śivā-rutam. Evam-ādīny abhadrāṇi. Babhāṣe naṣṭa-maṅgalaḥ. Novāca kiñcid bhagavān. Yathā siṁhaḥ śivā-rutam. Evam-ādīny abhadrāṇi. Babhāṣe naṣṭa-maṅgalaḥ. Novāca kiñcid bhagavān. Yathā siṁhaḥ śivā-rutam. Ladies? Oh, go ahead. Evam-ādīny abhadrāṇi. Babhāṣe naṣṭa-maṅgalaḥ. Novāca kiñcid bhagavān. Yathā siṁhaḥ śivā-rutam. Ladies? Evam-ādīny abhadrāṇi. Babhāṣe naṣṭa-maṅgalaḥ. Novāca kiñcid bhagavān. Yathā siṁhaḥ śivā-rutam. Anyone else? Evam-ādīny abhadrāṇi. Babhāṣe naṣṭa-maṅgalaḥ. Novāca kiñcid bhagavān. Yathā siṁhaḥ śivā-rutam. Word meanings. Evam, such. Ādīni, and more. Abhadrāṇi, harsh words. Babhāṣe, he spoke. Naṣṭa, ruined. Maṅgalaḥ, whose good fortune. Na uvāca, he did not say. Kiñcit, anything. Bhagavān, the Supreme Lord. Yathā, just as. Siṁhaḥ, a lion, Shiva of a jackal, Rutam, the cry. Translation. Śukadeva Gosvāmī continued, bereft of all good fortune, Śiśupāla spoke these and other insults, but the Supreme Lord said nothing, just as a lion ignores a jackal's cry. Please repeat. Śukadeva Gosvāmī continued, bereft of all good fortune, Śiśupāla spoke these and other insults, but the Supreme Lord said nothing, just as a lion ignores a jackal's cry. So now I'll just read the rest. Bhagavān nindanang śrutva duksahang tatchapasadaha karnau pidhaya nirjagmuhu shapantas chedipang rusha. Upon hearing such intolerable blasphemy of the Lord, several members of the assembly covered their ears and walked out, angrily cursing the king of Chedi. Nindang bhagavatak shringvangs tat parasya janasya va tato na paiti yahsopi yat yathā sukritach chutaha. Anyone who fails to immediately leave the place where he hears criticism of the Supreme Lord or his faithful devotee will certainly fall down, bereft of his pious credit. Tatak pandu sutak prudha matsya kaikaya srinjayaha udayudha samutastuhu Śiśupāla jighang sabaha. Then the sons of Pandu became furious, and together with the warriors of the Matsya, Kaikaya, and Srinjaya clans, they rose up from their seats with weapons poised, ready to kill Śiśupāla. Tataschayadyas tasambhranto jagrehe kadgacharmani bhartsayan Krishna pakshiyan ragyak sadasi bharata. Undaunted, Śiśupāla then took up his sword and shield in the midst of all the assembled kings, O Bharata, and hurled insults at those who sided with Lord Krishna. Text 43. Tavad utaya bhagavān svanivarya svayang rusha shirak shuranta chakrena jahara patato ripoho. At that point, the Supreme Lord stood up and checked his devotees. He then angrily sent forth his razor-sharp disc and severed the head of his enemy as he was attacking. Purport by the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains the Lord's actions as follows. If Lord Krishna had done nothing, there probably would have been a savage fight on the sacrificial grounds, and thus the whole ceremony would have been drenched in blood, spoiling the sanctified atmosphere. Therefore, in order to protect the Rajasuya sacrifice of Krishna's beloved devotee Yudhishthir, the Lord immediately severed Śiśupāla's head with his razor-sharp disc in such a way that not a drop of blood fell within the sacrificial grounds. Om Ajnana-timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Miditang Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yathā Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitang Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakanditangscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Prishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Panchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I've been invited to speak today. Please to take permission from my senior godbrothers and godsisters here, although I'm very junior to so many of them. But it's always wonderful to be able to speak about the glories of the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is our very means of conquest, such a wonderful scripture. In the first verse today, thank you. In the first verse today, you can hear me okay? Everybody can hear me? Hare Krishna. So, we hear that Śiśupāla was speaking these insults, blaspheming the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna, and he was bereft of all good fortune. And this is the result of committing this offensive blasphemy, that it destroys all of one's good qualities. Even if one is a devotee, one can commit various sins, but by chanting the holy name, although one shouldn't commit sins on the strength of chanting the holy name, but by engaging in devotional service, one will quickly be rectified. Kshiprang, what is the verse, that bhavati shikram bhavati dharmatma sashvat shantim. So one can be rectified from committing some mistakes, but from committing offenses to the Lord or his devotees, this is considered the mad elephant offense that can totally destroy one's devotional creeper. So it's the most horrible thing, the most thing that must be avoided altogether. And we see here that in the midst of these insults, Lord Krishna himself was unflappable. He was just like a lion, doesn't take consideration of a jackal's cry. So Lord Krishna was not at all disturbed by these insulting words. These are some of the qualities of Krishna. He's completely full in himself. He's completely self-satisfied. He's fully independent. Everything comes from him. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matak sarvang pravartate. Even the demons are coming from his energy. They can't rival him at all. Sometimes, in order to attract the minds of the devotees, he makes a show of having a good fight with a demon, and sometimes the demon seems to be winning and so forth. But actually the truth is that Krishna has no rival, and these demons cannot disturb him whatsoever. And these are some of the qualities of Krishna, and the devotees of Krishna automatically develop these qualities. They achieve Krishna also by devotional service. The devotees they attain to Krishna's own bhava. So devotees should also be tolerant. In the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna describes some of the qualities of his pure devotees that make them very dear to him. And I just want to read them. One who is not envious, but is a kind friend to all living entities, who does not think himself a proprietor, and is free from false ego, who is equal in both happiness and distress, who is tolerant, always satisfied, self-controlled, and engaged in devotional service with determination, his mind and intelligence fixed on me, such a devotee of mine is very dear to me. He by whom no one is put into difficulty, and who is not disturbed by anyone, who is equipoised in happiness and distress, fear and anxiety, is very dear to me. My devotee who is not dependent on the ordinary course of activities, who is pure, expert, without cares, free from all pains, and not striving for some result, is very dear to me. One who neither rejoices nor grieves, who neither laments nor desires, and who renounces both auspicious and inauspicious things, such a devotee is very dear to me. One who is equal to friends and enemies, who is equipoised in honor and dishonor, heat and cold, happiness and distress, fame and infamy, who is always free from contaminating association, always silent and satisfied with anything, who doesn't care for any residence, who is fixed in knowledge, and who is engaged in service. Such a person is very dear to me. So these are some of the qualities of pure devotees. There's 26 qualities that the pure devotees manifest because of their association with Krishna, they develop the qualities of Krishna. And Srila Prabhupada, in the purport to the last verse I read, he says, we may find some repetition in the descriptions of the qualifications of a devotee, but that is just to emphasize the fact that a devotee must acquire all these qualifications. Without good qualifications, one cannot be a pure devotee. Harava bhaktasya kuto mahadgunaha. One who is not a devotee has no good qualification. One who wants to be recognized as a devotee should develop the good qualifications. Of course, he does not extraneously endeavor to acquire these qualifications, but engagement in Krishna consciousness and devotional service automatically helps him develop them. So, what does it mean we don't extraneously try to develop these qualities? It means that through devotional service, one can actually manifest these qualities. If we try to just become these things without devotional service, it won't, like the verse was saying, kuto mahadgunan manorate nasati davato bihi. We won't be able to manifest these pure qualities. But through our devotional service, when we're not on the platform of bodily consciousness, of false ego and sense gratification, by surrendering to Krishna, by constantly serving Krishna, constantly thinking of Krishna, engaging our mind and intelligence in Krishna, then the devotees develop these qualities of Krishna. So just like Krishna wasn't disturbed when he was being insulted, we won't feel disturbed if someone is insulting us or dishonoring us or mistreating us. Of course, we have to be practical. We shouldn't let anyone harm us. Devotees have to be careful. Like, you all know the story of Narada Muni's disciple, the cobra, and how at first he was, they knew he was a devotee, so they weren't afraid of him. So Narada Muni told him, you can show your hood, then they won't bother you. So devotees shouldn't, out of some false humility or something, subject themselves to being harmed by anyone. But at the same time, by devotional service, when we're actually connected, when we're feeling completely satisfied by our connection to the Absolute Supreme Personality of Godhead, and we're feeling great happiness and bliss, these insults to our material body and the different sufferings of our material body become less significant to us or more external to us. They're temporary and they'll pass, and they're not the core of our consciousness where we're very, very happy. So, before getting into describing or discussing the nature of blasphemy and how it's dealt with, I want to take a little time to just glorify the amazing and wonderful and fascinating history of these gatekeepers who were cursed, Jai and Vijay, who were cursed by the four Kumaras, and they made a mistake. The four Kumaras were not yet devotees. They were completely pure sages who had kept themselves as little children to avoid being contaminated. They were completely pure, and like little children, they were curious and wandering in different places. And they actually wandered past the first 6 gates of Vaikuntha and were stopped at the 7th gate. So this was a mistake, but it was an understandable mistake, as they had not yet seen Lord Narayan and smelled the fragrance of his lotus feet. As it is said in Bhagavad Gita, Vishate tadanantaram bhaktya tvananyaya shakya bhaktya mam abhijanati yavan yaschasmi tatvataha tato mang tatvato gyatva vishate tadanantaram. To enter the kingdom of God, one has to be a devotee. One has to be engaged in devotional service. But in the 3rd canto, this pastime is described how these devotees, Jai and Vijay, made the mistake of forbidding these sages, and the sages, being like children, also responded angrily like a child who's forbidden to go somewhere, and they cursed the sages. And then the Lord came out to see what the commotion was about and to take care of the situation. He protects his devotees. In this case, when the Lord came out and the four Kumaras saw the beautiful Lord Narayan, saw his beautiful form. They smelled the fragrance from his lotus feet, of the tulsi leaves from his lotus feet. They became his devotees, and they felt regret at having cursed these doorkeepers, and they offered beautiful prayers. But then the Lord responded. He offered prayers back, offered instructions back, and said that he considered the mistake of his doorkeepers, his servants, to be his own mistake. This was that they were his representatives, and he glorified the brahmanas, and not just the brahmanas, the cows, and he mentioned the unprotected persons, namely brahmanas, cows, women, children, and elderly are expected to be protected under the rules of Dharma, and that, but especially he glorified these brahmanas, and that an insult to the brahmanas he considered was a great offense, and he took it as his own offense, and therefore he did not negate the curse. Now his servants, Jai and Vijay, were residents of Vaikuntha. It's understood that residents of Vaikuntha don't come to the material world. Nobody falls from the infallible world. But so Lord Krishna, in this case, they were cursed. You can see that this is so powerful that even a curse can cause someone to go to the material world. But Prabhupada mentions in the purport that because they were Vaikuntha Vasis, Lord Krishna protected him. They remembered him as demons, and this was a kind of bhakti yoga, unfavorable remembrance, but in anger, these three generations of demons were absorbed in him. Narada Muni says in the 7th canto that the demons can be even more intensely engaged in thinking of Krishna than the devotees can. He's praising it like that in the beginning of the 7th canto. This history of Jai and Vijay is important. It's told in the 3rd canto and the 7th canto. Again, we're hearing it in the 10th canto. And these demons are very important. In the Laghu Bhagavatamrita, Rupa Goswami points out that Lord Nrsingadev and Lord Ramachandra and, of course, the avatari Krishna, the original source, are very special personalities, these two special avatars and the avatari. And he makes the argument, he's making the argument that Lord Krishna is the original, complete source of all incarnations. And he points out that when Hiranyakashipu was killed by Lord Nrsingadev, he got the benefit of being killed by Lord Nrsingadev, that he got to be the opulent and great personality Ravana. And when he was killed, when Ravana was killed by Lord Rama, he also got some additional benefit and got to be this King Śiśupāla. But that when Śiśupāla was killed by Lord Krishna, he saw the beautiful lotus-eyed Krishna, and then he was able to first attain Sayujya Mukti and then return back to Vaikuntha. And this is an argument that shows that Krishna himself is the original and supreme and more potent in his mercy than even Lord Rama or Lord Nrsingadev. So we should be careful in our missionary work not to make the mistake like Jai and Vijay. Actually, Lord Narayan then told them, it was foretold by Lakshmi Devi, that they had actually also stopped her. When Krishna was sleeping, she wanted to return to Lord Narayan's side, and they stopped her, so that she was very angry, and that's why they ended up in this pastime making this mistake. But we have to be careful that our duty as servants of Srila Prabhupada, our mistakes will reflect on Srila Prabhupada. Our mistakes will reflect on Krishna consciousness, on the Vaishnavism, on the Krishna consciousness movement, and on ISKCON. So we have to be very careful to develop good qualities and to be very kind as preachers. You see in these three demons, there seems to be some diminishment, because Hiranyakashipu was in Satyayuga conditions. Ravana was in Treta Yuga conditions. Śiśupāla now in Dwapara Yuga, the end of Dwapara Yuga. So Hiranyakashipu was a bigger demon. He like controlled the whole universe, and all the demigods were under his control. Of course, Ravana was disturbing all the demigods. It's said that in the Satya Yuga, the demons and the demigods live on different planets, and they have war like that. In the Treta Yuga, they live on the same planet, but in different dynasties and different countries. And in Dwapara Yuga, they live in the same dynasties, just like the Kurukshetra war, the Pandavas, and it was a fratricidal war between families. Śiśupāla was also Krishna's cousin, as we saw. So in Kali Yuga, they live in the same individuals. And when Jagai and Madhai were delivered by Lord Chaitanya, he didn't kill their physical body. Because of their insult to Lord Nityananda, he was prepared to. His chakra was out. He was about to cut off their head, but Lord Nityananda pled with him that, please, Lord, if you kill these two rascals, you'll have to kill everybody in Kali Yuga, because everybody is so much demonic mentality. But instead, Lord Chaitanya brought forth this Sankirtan mission, this Sankirtan movement that kills the demonic mentality of the people of Kali Yuga. This chanting of the Hare Krishna is so potent in this age that it kills the sinful mentality and atheistic mentality that is so prevalent among the people in this age. So we have to be especially kind like that. We shouldn't tolerate hearing blasphemy. So we see the first reaction is some of the people in the assembly, and this was a great assembly at the Rajasuya sacrifice. There were sages, there were demigods, there were great personalities there, great kshatriyas and brahmanas, and some of them just covered their ears and cursed Śiśupāla under their breath as they left the assembly, not willing to hear, be present when this blasphemy was there. That's a very good response. It's a warning, don't go on Facebook, because you'll hear these things. And then some of them were prepared to actually kill Śiśupāla and meet him. The Pandavas and their allies who had gone and helped them prepare for the Rajasuya sacrifice, conquering all the directions. They were prepared to kill Śiśupāla. So we shouldn't kill anybody in this age, but those who are capable should defend Srila Prabhupada's honor, should defend the honor of ISKCON by good arguments and good presentation to defeat the blasphemy that is sometimes directed towards the devotees by different people. And like that. And Krishna, in this case, as we hear, he rectified the situation by avoiding a big war, a big savage fight that would have bloodstained the sacrificial arena and ruined the whole sacrifice. He protected, as he always protects his devotees. His devotees never perish. So we heard that he was able to sever the head of Śiśupāla without even spilling a drop of blood in the sacrificial arena where it would have caused impurification. So this is a wonderful thing that Krishna did. So when we go out and preach, of course we're hoping that we can get someone even to stop and talk to us first. And then if they stop, we're hoping to get them to touch the book, take a look at it, see it. Then we're hoping for them to be interested enough to give a donation and take the book. And then we're hoping that they'll actually read the book. Maybe we invite them to come for the Sunday feast or to come visit the temple, and they come to the temple. Maybe we see them there and we invite them that they can come and stay a couple days and go to the morning program. And then if they want to become a devotee, so we should have that mood of really trying to help everyone. And we shouldn't feel like once they've become a devotee, now they're junior to us, we have somebody we can boss around and bully. We have to still feel that same feeling of wanting to see the success of other Vaishnavas. In this song, "O Hey Vaishnava Thakur," Bhaktivinoda Thakur sings, "I can't carry on this Sankirtan movement alone. I need the mercy of the Vaishnavas. We have so many wonderful Vaishnavas in ISKCON, and we need their mercy, and we should respect them. Especially in the holy Dham, everything is magnified. We should be very, very careful not to commit any offenses. Everyone here is worshipable. Just the Brijbasis, Lord Chaitanya instructed that they worship Krishna in a different way. Maybe the devotees shouldn't mix too closely with them. If we see them, it's apparent discrepancy, we should overlook that because they have a deep connection to Krishna. But not just the residents of Vrindavan, but even the pilgrims and anyone who's here in this holy place, they're all worshipable. Not that we should let ourselves get cheated or I mean, we have to be practical, but we should have that mentality of seeing how Krishna's in everyone's heart, and everyone's here in this holy land of Krishna, and we should be very respectful to them and avoid making the mistake of like Jai and Vijay, of trying to bar someone from Krishna's mercy. Now, as far as blasphemy is concerned, as we discussed, it's very, very disastrous to hear these things. I should say that Anuttama, you all know Anuttama, GBC, he's Minister of Communication. He's made it a point to stay in touch with the anti-cult movement. In fact, he said that in the early days, we were a primary target of the anti-cult movement. Whenever they had a picture of a cult, they had a picture of a devotee with a shaved head and a Sikha, and a weird look in his face, He said that now they're becoming more and more respectful, some of these anti-cult groups. And he makes a point to go with them and interact with them and show them that he's a real regular person and not some weird zombie-like cultist. But he mentioned that one of the things that he took to heart was that one of the things that makes a cult is when you're absolutely criticize the leader. And then the leaders can do all kinds of crazy things, but nobody can stand up to the leader. So it's a corollary to this thing that we should never hear blasphemy, and we should avoid criticizing devotees, especially leading devotees, and especially senior devotees, and we should avoid like the plague these criticisms. But the corollary is, Srila Prabhupada said, we can call a thief, and sometimes it's necessary for the sake of the movement and for the sake of doing things correctly, that we watch out. Sometimes danger lurks in the leadership, and we have to have proper protocols, like we have a child protection office and a leadership misconduct office. And if a leader does something that seems obviously wrong, devotee should talk to someone senior and should not just assume, okay, I can't criticize. I know you're all great devotees and you don't watch movies. I saw a movie, a Bollywood movie called Maharaja, and it was about a historical episode in the 19th century among the Vallabhacharya Sampradaya in Bombay, where there was one very powerful acharya, and he had started insisting that the virgin girls before they got married had illicit sex with him. He called it the divine service, and people would pay to watch it. And so in the course of this movie, one very nice devotee who was just an ordinary devotee, but he became a journalist, and he exposed this, and it was a big struggle. And the acharya he was so puffed up that he brought a libel suit in the British court in Bombay in the 1860s or something like that, 1870s. And eventually, although there was this whole structure around this very big, thriving community of devotees, that eventually people started telling on him, and the the corruption was exposed and stopped. But corruption sometimes can happen, so we have to be very careful to avoid blasphemy, and at the same time, we can call a thief, and we need senior and qualified people within the movement to check discrepancies that might arise even among leadership, like that. So, I could open it up at this time for some discussion. I probably have many other points that I wanted to cover, but I think this might be a good time for questions, comments, and realizations from the devotees. Jai. Panchagoda.
Did we do book distribution together?
Yes, back in Miami, and we did book distribution in Miami. Vijay and Radhalingana and so many nice devotees.
So could it be also seen that Krishna orchestrated this whole Jai and Vijay to apparently offend the four Kumaras, because actually the Lord wanted to perform pastimes of, maybe fighting with his devotees. So you could see it both ways. You said they made a mistake, but just like the Battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna orchestrated everything and put all the players in place. And this is also something could be seen as orchestrated by Krishna for his Leela, and that we're getting through the through the Bhagavatam.
Yes, Krishna enjoys a good fight. And in the spiritual world, there's no demons to actually fight. There's rumors of demons, but he doesn't get to fight them. So he has to come to the material world to fight demons. And some demons are actually forgetful of Krishna. And some of them remember him in different ways, just like Kamsa remembered him out of fear. He was always fearful. He heard that Krishna was going to come kill him. He was always thinking, when is Krishna going to kill me? I got to stop it. I'm going to, These Jai and Vijay, they're actually Krishna's servants, loyal servants, but by this divine arrangement, this wonderful, Srimad Bhagavatam is so glorious, and it's organized in such a way that it's so enlightening. But Krishna, by his wonderful arrangement, gets to play with fighting these demons who are actually his servants. And they play the part very well. Śiśupāla, we heard here, that when the Pandus and all these armies got up to strike him, Śiśupāla didn't cower. Of course, he probably had some supporters too. His biggest supporter, Jarasandha, had already been defeated, liberated by Bhima. But he got up with his sword and shield and was ready to take them on. He was a real demon. He had the real, because this is the role he was playing in Krishna's pastimes. But at the time, he was also he was conscious of Krishna in anger. He wasn't conscious that I'm really Jaya and I've had to play this role as a demon. He was actually feeling like, Krishna, I can't tolerate Krishna being glorified. After all, he always hated Krishna, and then Krishna stole Rukmini from him. He was supposed to marry Rukmini, and Rukmini was so beautiful and qualified that all the princes wanted to marry her, and then Krishna took her away. Again, the story of a lion and a jackal, just like a lion from a pack of jackals. And so Śiśupāla really hated Krishna. And in fact, he wanted to also disturb King Yudhishthira's sacrifice. We heard that also, that he, instead of just immediately objecting and saying, no, Krishna shouldn't be the person to get the Agra Puja, he waited until they were already worshipping him, so he could hurt Krishna's devotees, the Pandavas, who he also resented, and destroy their sacrifice. But yes, this is all Krishna's play. Krishna makes these beautiful arrangements. He's a master of these leelas. Jai Adikarta Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. As far as killing people, Prabhupada, one time he was asked, because he said that everything can be used in Krishna's service. So the devotee asked him, what about the atomic bomb? So he said, yes, you can use that in Krishna's service. You can put all the demons on an island, you can drop the bomb on them.
But I don't think we should take these as instructions, practical instructions. Srila Prabhupada was, I think, speaking figuratively that way. That, in fact, there was one devotee 40 years ago who was a very badly behaved person. He tried to abduct his child from the mother, he was disaffected from the New Vrindavan community, and then some devotees actually arranged to murder him. And we haven't heard the end of it. This happened 40 years ago, and in the mass media, what people hear about the Hare Krishna movement and everything, the producers of movies and things, documentaries, this is what they find interesting about the Hare Krishna movement, is that there was this murder that happened, and so people get this wrong impression of the Hare Krishna movement, that they take one criminal incident as representative of our movement. So in this way, we made a mistake on a white sheet, one dark blot is very, very prominent. And so this Krishna consciousness movement is very pure, and it's really the solution to save the world in this dark age of Kali Yuga. We have the Srimad Bhagavatam, this great scripture which, just by reciting it and hearing it with a receptive heart, Krishna sits on our own heart and destroys all our sins and makes us perfectly qualified to participate in Krishna's pastimes. But if we make one little mistake, maybe murdering someone is not a little mistake, but if we make a mistake, it reflects badly on our whole movement, and it reflects badly on Prabhupada and on Krishna even. So we have to be very, very careful how we deal with people and be very kind. Devotees are also tolerant. Sometimes, because we're beginners, we can treat each other roughly sometimes, and been treated roughly. The devotees who've been through the fire of ordeal, sometimes you can see how great and sincere and pure they are, that they've stuck it out through thick and thin. As I mentioned, don't go on Facebook, but if you go on Facebook, you'll see a lot of people complaining and criticizing, like Adikarta was mentioning yesterday, just like Śiśupāla, they become bereft of their good fortune. Their life is all about blaspheming ISKCON and blaspheming the devotees, and sometimes even blaspheming Prabhupada. But at the same time, we can think, why are there so many people who seems to have had a bad experience in ISKCON? It could be something that some devotees did also. Bhaktisiddhanta mentioned that it takes, I forget, a bucket of blood, something like that, to make one devotee. And we have to be very careful not to lose them. So by being kind to devotees and making sure that they have everything they need, if they're having trouble, that they have someone to go to and to solve their problems. We shouldn't lose the devotees. We should retain the devotees that we've got. Of course, sometimes, I think Srila Prabhupada said something, it's 50% their fault and 50% our fault or something. Some people just, for their own reasons, become inimical. It's difficult actually Krishna consciousness is bliss, right? The four regulative principles are just healthy and clean way to live. Chanting Hare Krishna is wonderful, and chanting 16 rounds, it's not that hard really, especially if you're getting a taste. Prabhupada said if you're chanting well, you should feel like, why 16 rounds? Why not 1,000,000 rounds? But sometimes because of our addictions, because of our past bad habits and things like that, it seems difficult to us, and we should try to help those who are having difficulties and make sure that they can stay and get the real benefit. If you read the Science of Self-Realization, there's an article, a letter that Srila Prabhupada wrote to a lady named Lynn Ludwig, and she met some devotees on a parking lot somewhere, And it's not clear exactly what happened between them, but she thought that they had a very negative attitude toward the people they met. And she wrote to Srila Prabhupada and said, I forget how she said it, in a very sort of New Agey, flowery way, that these little rays of love that you send out shouldn't be acting this way, or whatever. So Srila Prabhupada took the time to respond to her, and he mentioned that in the beginning, because devotees are declaring war on material energy, so sometimes in the beginning, to protect themselves, they become averse to the idea of material happiness, and they behave in such a way. Young celibate men sometimes become averse to women to protect themselves. But we shouldn't have, the women in our movement shouldn't be mistreated. A lot of them in the early days suffered a lot of crazy mistreatment and things. But we're all spirit souls, we're all devotees of Krishna, and we all should be kind to one another and help each other advance in Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada wrote to them and said, again, this idea that when they become, in the beginning, they may have these aversions to material happiness that make them seem callous, and of course he said, I don't know what happened between those devotees and you, but he said that when they become successful in Krishna consciousness, then they become the purest, the greatest saintly people of the world. That's what this Krishna consciousness accomplishes. It turns people into saints with all the good qualities of the demigods, right? This verse was quoted in, I think it's Hanuman and the residents of Kimpurusha Varsha are praying in the 5th canto, and they say that Yasyasti bhaktir bhagavati kinchana sarvaya gunas tatra samasate suraha. And Prabhupada quoted the other part, harava bhaktas bhakteshu kuto mahadgunan matora denasatatavatophi. So the devotees, by their very engagement in connection with Krishna, just like Krishna is the supreme pure and the supreme purifier, and he's full of all these good qualities, the devotees will develop those good qualities too. Now, Shrutakirti, I'm looking at you. You said you were going to have a good question for me.
Put him on the spot. Put him on the spot.
Excuse me.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I was thinking, and you started out in the beginning, of course, as Vaishnavas, devotees, we know criticism is a big stumbling block. But during your class, you also mentioned different things that have happened in our society. And could we think sometimes the fact that we don't stop and criticize things that should be criticized, and they keep increasing until the time when things like this do happen. So how do you make a balance between not criticizing what is actually false in what's being done or by different devotees? Just let it go, because we don't want to criticize when it can actually make a blemish on our society itself.
So two things. We should check our motive. Why are we criticizing? It's when we hear about the great devotees, the evam-ādīkaris, nindādi shunya hridamipshita sangilabdhya, they're free from the propensity to criticize. Why? Because they don't have any envy, they don't have any rival, they're already completely satisfied, they're already happy. They don't have any envy in their heart. That's nimatsaranam satam. That makes them eligible to really receive Srimad Bhagavatam. So, but nevertheless, as a matter of responsibility, we can call a thief a thief. We have duties to protect the movement, to protect the preaching program, to make sure it's going nicely, to instruct the juniors so that they learn how to do things correctly. But we should check our motive, that are we doing it because of some deficiency in us, or are we doing it because of some responsibility to make sure it's constructive, to fix a problem? And secondly, we need to pay attention to the method. going on social media and saying, these devotees are terrible, they did these terrible things to me, or something like that. It's not constructive. It's not going to really help anything. It's not going to solve your problem, and it may be very dangerous for you to distract you from the actual. Even if you leave ISKCON, at least you should not stop chanting Hare Krishna, not stop performing devotional service. Of course, we should never leave ISKCON, but even if we do, some people do, they find shelter in some other society or some other spiritual master, another Gaudiya Vaishnava, or even another Vaishnava Sampradaya, but some people, they become very critical, but they stop following the four regular principles and they stop chanting, but they still maintain this desire to criticize. So the method should be designed to actually rectify the situation. So it's better to go to a senior person who can help. And we also have organizations, like I mentioned, the CPO. Another problem, we hate to talk about these things, but another problem in our movement, it happens in other churches and anything where children are camping out, things the Boy Scouts of America had a big problem, is there are pedophiles, and nobody likes to think about it or talk about it, but it really happens. There are people who prey on children for sexual pleasure, and sometimes that happened in our society, in our schools as well. And of course we have to stamp that out very vigorously and make sure that never happens. So we have to have programs designed properly in place to protect children, just like we were talking about before, women, children, Brahmins, cows, and the elderly. We also have to take care of the elderly. We shouldn't see that there's a dichotomy that between, sometimes on both sides, protecting the institution and protecting the devotees. The institution will become stronger if we properly protect the devotees, and also to protect the devotees, we don't have to bash the institution, and we don't have to, we should be able to know that we don't have to destroy the devotional career of someone because of some mistake they made many years ago. So these things need to be balanced. So I would say those two things. Check your motive, that you're doing it out of a sense of being constructive and trying to fix a problem out of responsibility. And then check your method. Make sure that you're doing it in a way that's actually designed to have the desired constructive result. But otherwise, be very careful when you hear criticism. Don't let yourself get contaminated. If you're a junior devotee, don't let yourself be hurt, but maybe you don't have necessarily the responsibility to fix the problems that you see. At least check with someone who's more experienced and more senior, and trust your common sense, but at the same time don't become like Śiśupāla, someone who's just out of envy and conceitedness and false ego, blaspheming and criticizing. Anything else? Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Shri Krishna ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.